Next topic and talk is with Operation Code, an NPO that is dedicated to providing veterans, military spouses, and transitioning service members an opportunity to start a career in tech. Led by a team of veterans and other dedicated, passionate volunteers, Operation Code provides mentorship, online scholarship, resources, and an opportunity to connect with a 9,000 plus member community. In this conversation, we'll be joined by Cynthia Kao, Director of Communications, Marketing and Program Development at Operation Code, Conrad Hollomon, Executive Director of Operations Code, and Operations Code alumni, Vital Boisset, Product and UX Designer. I'm going to be jumping in to moderate this talk, so please welcome our guests.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, everybody.
Thank you, Cynthia, Conrad. And is it Vital? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yeah, Vital.
Okay, fantastic. Well, first off, I'd just love to hear a little bit about each of your backgrounds and trajectory coming into Operation Code. And how about we start with Cynthia?
Sure, I'll be the early bird. I had a non-traditional route to tech. I spent 6 years in the Air Force Reserves doing public affairs, got thrown all the digital work because I taught myself how to code in the 90s, OG style. And, I kind of saw this transition from, at that time, none of our assets were on digital platforms. And so there was this transition to move all of our press assets, all of our photos, video into the digital platform. And so it was really interesting. When I got out in 2014, I spent a few years in TV and film, working on the production side, loved it, moved, from my public affair days, my photojournalism into video, and then quickly into digital. And so I didn't have Operation Code in my life. I didn't have a mentor. Nobody warned me what I was going to expect when I got out. I deployed twice, so I was dealing with a lot of combat stress that I wasn't really aware of how to manage. So, it was just like swimming in the ocean without having a lot of support. And a lot of it was just trial and error, making a ton of mistakes. I think the biggest thing that I learned was to trust myself, was to listen to what worked and what didn't work. And oftentimes when you're kind of hitting your wall and you're in this very steep incline, this learning curve that's super steep, you can question whether you made the right decision. And incrementally, when you start to set goals for yourself, you're not looking at like, this is the final goal in a year or 5 years. It can be super daunting, but you're looking at like, what can I do for today? What can I do for tomorrow? And what can I change within a week? So looking at really small incremental changes. And then very quickly, I started to look back and go, oh my gosh, how did I get here? This is amazing. So that's a little bit about me. I now work as a UI UX designer, product designer. I'm also a founder in the tech industry, and my job here at Operation Code, we're 99% all volunteer force. So I love giving back and being able to mentor others in areas where I didn't have it.
Awesome. Yeah, I identify with that so much. It's so easy to get wrapped up in the future, right? And just to break, I love that your plan, their action plan of breaking it down from 5 years to 5 months, 5 days, and then just like, what's today, and how, if I want to go to this big place, what am I doing just today that's going to get me a little closer there? And then before you know it, you're that much closer to it. So I love that. Vital, how about you?
Hi, I'm Vital. So I was an Army veteran. I was infantryman, got wounded pretty badly in Afghanistan. And so I, found myself in early 2010, without a plan to stay in the Army. So what was I going to do next? Spent a whole lot of time in front of computers. So I figured I should probably look down that avenue. And so I designed a whole lot of websites, taught myself how to do that. That veered into working on marketing stuff, doing marketing projects for small businesses and nonprofits. A lot of self-learning still. And from that, I moved into doing similar stuff, but moving a bit into the design side of things for startups. So a lot of consulting and doing small projects with a whole lot of different startups. And then, yeah, I ended in my current role, which is a UX designer for another startup working in e-commerce. And so, yeah, I have a lot of tips and strategy on how to navigate, I guess, the the business world and the tech scene. How to give yourself shortcuts and just life hacks to make it work. And so, yeah, that's me.
Thanks, Vital. Conrad?
Yeah, thank you, Hunter. There's so many incredible stories in Operation Code. I'll try to keep mine pretty brief. So I also was Army infantry. Spent some time doing that overseas. Realized pretty quickly I was a bit more of a geek than a grunt. I mean, I love running through the forest, and I love and all that stuff just as much as the next person. But I was always a tech guy. I was always a computer geek. Spent some time in the Signal Corps, focused on IT, telecommunications, networking, that sort of thing. And one of the things that I remembered most about my section was I ended up, after I came back from Afghanistan, I was in the National Guard. So one of those weekend part-time folks. And I saw that a lot of members of my section had the skills and the will, and there were folks that I loved working with, but they were dealing with challenges of employment when they had skills, once again, that they could be earning, high 5-figure and 6-figure jobs, but making that transition into like, how do you leverage that? How do you enter the civilian world with those skills? How do you sell that skill set? Was a big challenge. And that was part of why we started Operation Code and why we started to build this organization. It's very much a grassroots effort. For myself, like I had, I've always been a geek, and I feel like very lucky and very privileged to have been able to make my way in the tech industry through basically starting with software testing, which was at the time it was a very manual, almost a minimum wage job. And that was a minimum wage job, actually. Started doing that for a few years and gradually working my way closer to the engineering side, closer to the tech side. I currently work now as a senior technical PM on the artificial intelligence team at Unity, but it was a long, long road. And a lot of folks in the Operation Code community are going down that road too. Like our mission as Operation Code is to be there over the long term, really focusing on building a future where the military community, and that's inclusive of veterans and military families, helps transform the culture of the tech industry through their dedication to serving with honor. That's the vision that we're trying to build at Operation Code across our community. I tried to keep it short. I'm sure folks will let me know if I was successful or not about that. And I'll bounce back to you, Hunter.
That's great, Conrad. Thank you. And right off the bat, I just want to thank all three of you for your open candor right from the beginning of your experience. And I really appreciate that. I'm sure our audience really appreciates that. And I'd like to extend, my thanks to all of you and your service for your commitment. And as you've now all shared about, little snippets of your unique experiences, they're different. But how do you think your goals and your aspirations have aligned together and to form Operation Code. Anyone can jump in.
Yeah, so that is quite a journey, Hunter, and I'll talk a little bit about sort of how Operation Code came together on this. I mean, we're a grassroots organization, really. We started out as a group of motivated volunteers across the country who were mentoring and coaching our fellow brothers and sisters in arms and preparing them for the careers of the future. Each of us individually was working to help veterans and military spouses within our community. For me, it was the soldiers in my section. For some of our other folks who helped to build this, it was in Colorado, like being a mentor at coding boot camps or starting up meetups locally in Oregon. Like we had folks from all over the country. And that sort of created this large community. We all met online, and over time it got bigger and bigger and bigger, such to the point that like we had created this remote decentralized community where we could have a greater impact than any of us could have just around our individual locations. So it was definitely a bottom-up type initiative. As we saw that, we began to identify, hey, we have a lot in common here. Like there are deeper problems in transition, especially with the use of GI Bill benefits, especially with the challenges that both veterans and military families face when it comes to accessing benefits and accessing resources that can really help them. So we created a 501c3 to support our community. And we started seeing local chapters, more local chapters bring up. It's like very kind of a grassroots thing. And that's kind of how we hit the point that we're at today. So it's been fascinating to watch and just seeing people continue that sense of service, even after they remove the uniform. So that's a bit of my perspective. Cynthia, what do you think?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, a lot of folks don't know if they're using the Vet Tech benefit, VET-TEC. That is a initiative that Operation Code forged around 2016, 2017, it was passed. We went to Congress, we lobbied for it. We did a lot of advocacy work to change this policy because at that time, the GI Bill was not allowed, it was not allowed to use for coding boot camps or higher technical education. It was only used for four-year degrees and only specific four-year degrees. So we found a lot of folks getting their computer science degree or general kind of tech field. They still were unprepared getting out with tons of student debt, you know, because the GI Bill didn't cover everything. And then on top of that, we're seeing military spouses who couldn't afford to go to school. So, you know, coding boot camps provided a very quick entry into the tech field and gave very deep, quick learning skills. So that's a big part of our identity is the advocacy work that we continue to do. We are working with other nonprofit organizations too to bring light and awareness to our marginalized population. You know, for example, a lot of people, when they find out I'm a vet, when they work with me, they go, well, you don't look like a vet. And then I go back and go, well, what does a veteran look like? You know, and so we're trying to break down these stereotypes. And one of the personal things that I will bring up in my journey of being part of Operation Code is I came for the coding help, I stayed for the community. And, you know, I fully intended, oh, this is going to be like tribal. People are going to like not invite me because I wasn't combat arms and I don't look like them and I don't speak like them. And I found a very, very different experience. When I came, there were people that were a lot like me. We have a women's channel. You know, we started kind of advocating for support for, you know, the marginalized groups. And I really love the community that we've built. And that's why I'm a part of this.
Great, thank you. Vital, do you have anything you'd like to add on that topic?
A lot of good stuff was already mentioned there, but yeah, one thing that you know, one thing you hear a lot is that I don't have a network in the tech. I don't know anyone in tech. You know, how am I going to get started? And so one thing that you know, everybody on Operation Code needs was to meet other tech people, and so with us having this common being a veteran thing, it definitely helped make that bridge, you know, because, you know, for example, a fellow infantryman, you know, we already know each other, from what we did in the military. And so a lot of the, being afraid of sounding stupid or saying the wrong thing, that doesn't really exist in that environment. So that helped me a lot, to meet other vets that are along the same journey as me, pretty much. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And Cynthia, I see you just answered a question in the chat, and I'd like to bring some attention to it because I think some other people might be wondering it as well. And to touch on a little bit of some term clarification, Conrad mentioned earlier 501c3, which is a nonprofit status, and which will segue into this question. Emil from the chat asked, is Operation Code boot camp? Cynthia, would you like to touch on what you wrote there for us?
Yeah, sure. So I think in our early days, since we were founded by an Army veteran who was teaching himself Ruby on Rails, and this basically started in a very grassroots fashion, the former, leaders at the time decided, hey, what do we want to be? What do we not want to be? And we decided being a coding boot camp would really not serve the community because that would lend to a conflict of interest. If you're a coding boot camp, most of the time you're for profit. There are nonprofit coding boot camps out there, but the goal of this community is to network with each other, provide sound and unbiased advice. We also work with coding boot camps. They are in our presence. We've got recruiters in our presence to answer questions from members. But we highly recommend members to go seek out for themselves data-driven decisions on which coding boot camp would be best suited for their career trajectory. Some folks come in, they have no idea what section of tech they want to go into. They are not familiar with tech language or culture. And so we provide that. And a lot of people, we've got, members that are from every major FANG company you can think of, founders, startup, CTOs that are within our presence. So, with 9,000 people, our strength is our network. And so we decided we didn't want to be a coding bootcamp because that would limit us on the resources that we would be able to provide to our community. So we focus on the community aspect, workforce development, networking for sure. And Conrad can attest to this. It's so much easier to get a vet through, if I work at a company and I refer Vital, it's more likely to go through the hiring manager and for him to actually get an interview than if he just cold applies and it's like 300 stacks of applicants long. We're seeing it from talking to tech companies that there's about 500 to 600 applicants for one open role. How many of those actually convert into that role are veterans or from the military community? And what we're hearing from hiring managers and diversity specialists is that very, very few of those are converting. So there's really two sides of the coin. Our focus is to educate our community to get into those roles and to grow into those roles, not just the newbies, but if you're looking at like the entire journey, the career journey, we want folks to get into senior leadership roles so that they can advocate and so that they can make a difference within the culture of tech, not just give somebody a job, insert vet into job, and then your job is done. Like, that's not what we are. We basically walk you through the entire career process. And so we've had people that came to us like back in 2014, 2015, who didn't know tech, got out, was an infantry grunt, and now are founders, and they're still part of our community, and they're advocating and they're helping and mentoring. And so it's amazing to kind of see that full journey. But yeah, the other side of the coin is really talking to tech companies, opening the cultural competency door, educating people on the value of hiring military, breaking down some of these stereotypes that people might have that they're not aware of. So that's really like that two-pronged approach is where we stand.
And Cynthia, you mentioned earlier, how this can be, someone that newbie that has nothing to do, no experience in tech, and suddenly now there's this opportunity, but it can be overwhelming even maybe to enter something new, even daunting. And you have a background as a mental health care advocate. What do you and some of your volunteers, how do you handle this crisis of maybe imposter syndrome or people just feeling overwhelmed? And how do you inspire confidence in them? And what practical things do you teach them to help them into this transition?
Yeah, for sure. Mental health. I had a conversation yesterday with Conrad where I said the number one indicator for personal success in their job and in their own personal life is mental health wellness. And I say that, because I spent 15 years as a licensed clinical social worker prior to even my service and moving into tech myself. So that's always been a part of my life. Now it's kind of come full circle because we hold, career resiliency workshops once a month. We actually just had one last week that talked about how to overcome and battle imposter syndrome and why imposter syndrome happens. And, we have a mental health channel that's a peer-to-peer support channel. We are part of the America Serves Network that is connected through the Institute of Veterans and Military Families. So that's over 300 certified VSOs that we can make a referral if we have a member in crisis, or they're dealing with chronic homelessness, food insecurity, mental health issues, lack of affordable childcare. These are all barriers to people being able to get into tech and remain in tech. It's not as easy as, well, okay, here's a job. Let's just get that person a job and they're fine. You might not be considering that there are residual issues or barriers for them accessing care. If you've got a disabled veteran who's got a TBI, you need employers to understand there may be, there needs to be some, transitional devices that they may need, assistive devices. They may not communicate in the same manner that you're used to communicating. So really educating again and empowering the community. I kind of lead with a first person story. I share my story, and I didn't know that I was dealing with a TBI and PTSD until 2015. So until then, I was doing well in my career, but I really struggled. I felt very isolated. And so whenever somebody shares something, I lead with my own experience to kind of break down that stigma of, well, I got to be real hua and I can't ask for help, and the best thing we can do, and I kind of share that forward, the best thing you can do for your own personal success is to get your mental health taken care of and make sure that it's just like if you were to go to the doctor or the dentist, you're taking care of your health, and health is 360.
Absolutely. It's the foundation for everything that we do. Vital, as an alumni of Operation Code, can you speak to how Operation Code reaches out and gives access to those who are applying for mentorships and scholarships that are interested in a career in tech, and perhaps maybe you can speak on your own experience, how that was coming in, and some of the things that you experienced when you went through the program.
Yeah, so let's see. I discovered Operation Code at actually WordCamp conference in DC, right? Something happened. I mentioned I was a veteran, and some guy was like, "Hey, I'm part of Operation Code. Here's my card. Check this out." I was like, "Oh, that's weird, but that's cool. At least there's one other veteran in tech, And I hopped on the website, and all of a sudden, I was exposed to a whole lot of different things. I met a few people that were instrumental as far as mentors. I received a lot of different resources, joining different channels, whether it was a code membership to a tutorial website called Team Treehouse. So resources to get into coding that actually cost money. But also I got exposed to different types of meetings that are going on. Veterans getting together and working on some projects. Let's see, I met hackathon teammates through Operation Code. I've actually done a few hackathons through them, and so that was hugely helpful. Mentioned that in a lot of different job interviews. And then when I did join a boot camp, it was a nice opportunity to meet other people that had taken that specific boot camp through some other Operation Code channels, and kind of get a review. It's like, oh, you've been through this. What is it like? Like, oh, avoid it. Okay, good deal. So yeah, there's quite a bit of different things you can get, different programs you can join, different people to connect with. And so yeah, it's a Slack channel. So join the conversation, browse the channels, and you'll probably find your people in there.
Great. Thank you, Vital. So with a community of over 7,000 people who had been unrepresented, must be an exhilarating success for all of you. And I'm curious, Conrad, if you would say that this victory has further shaped the goal behind Operation Code, and what does that look like moving forward?
Yeah, 100%. And I think, so a couple things. It like as of the beginning of this year at 8K, and I think we've hit 9 like a month ago. So the growth has been crazy, honestly. And what that tells me is that like when you look at opportunities in technology and opportunities for veterans and military spouses in that alignment, it's there. It's clear. There's interest on both sides of the fence to get veterans and military spouses into these types of roles. And where we are seeking to make the biggest impact, given how many people are interested, is really helping folks understand what it means to make this transition. Our mission as Operation Code is to prepare the military community for the jobs of tomorrow, help develop their careers in the tech industry, and deploy the future. And when I say deploy the future, it's important to understand, I'm talking specifically to any veterans or military spouses that are listening now, is that transitioning to a new career is not about leaving behind your identity. You will always be, to some degree, an infantryman. You will always be, once a Marine, always a Marine, right? You will always be, whatever unit you're in, you will always carry that with you. I mean, many times you deployed, you'll have that with you. But it is about becoming more than you were before. It means understanding new cultures and learning to adapt. Especially the US military has been spending the last 20 years working to understand new cultures and learning to adapt overseas. It means looking to the future and keeping faith that our best days are in front of us. They're not behind us. You want to make sure that those who have served are prepared for the future of this nation's economy. And that, I mean, look, I work on an AI team. I see every day how jobs are being replaced by algorithms and automation. And our intent as Operation Code is to make sure that veterans and military families have every tool in their arsenal to ensure that they will succeed in the careers of the future, not the past. Our service, for me, Vital, Cynthia, our service did not stop when we took off the uniform. And that sense of service that brought us to Operation Code does not stop with only helping people who look or think just like us. And that's why we focus so much on underserved communities and how we can really represent this community in a larger sense to the tech industry.
Thank you so much. Well, in this last minute now, as we're wrapping up, is there anything coming up that our audience can be a part of? If you take volunteers, how can they apply? Can they connect to you in some way? What's the best way forward?
Yeah, I can answer that one. Best way to reach us is on operationcode.org, or if you just Google Operation Code, we should come up for you. We've got a Call of Duty Warzone gaming tournament coming up on December 4th. It's a fun event. It's a friendly vets versus civilians tournament. That's kind of our annual fundraiser, and our theme for this year for Veterans Day is every day is Veterans Day to a veteran, for sure. We don't forget about being veterans because Veterans Day is no longer around. So we really want to promote that with this year, especially with all of our service members that are exiting service, with the withdrawal of troops. That's the reason why we grew by 2,000 in just a few months. And so we really need all the support we can get. If you work in tech, if you represent a company, we'd love to have that conversation with you. How can we help you? How can we open doors to more military members within your company? And also, how can we educate the folks that are trying to get in, that are just exiting the service and needing some help?
Great, thank you. And Conrad's dropping info there in the chat box that we will relay over to our live stream box. Cynthia, Conrad, Vital, thank you for your time. Thank you for your service. Thank you for today.
Thank you, Hunter. It's an honor to serve.